Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar, the podcast where we take a look at episodes of, well, originally the show, Avatar The Last Airbender, but here we are looking at Korra. We're on episode 4, Fora of Korra, in season 1, and the episode is called something, The Voice in the Night. There it is. This went horribly wrong very quickly. Chris, how about you say some things?
I'll be honest with you, I threw up in my mouth a little when you were like, Fora for Korra, so with the lack of quality at that. Dan,
yeah,
it was. Well, I felt you haven't recapped. I don't talk until you recap, baby. What's going on here?
Okay,
I'll say something.
All right, I'll do this as quick as I can.
Oh well, Jess is coming in with a cup of tea. I can say that. Here we go. Thank you for the tea, Jess. Ow, that's hot.
Thank you for the tea,
Yes,
Jess.
Recording. Why? What's your no? People love personal content, Jess. What's the question?
I should ask what roast you fancied on Sunday.
What roast do I fancy on Sunday? I'm leaving it entirely up to Dan. Dan, what roast are we having on Sunday?
Well, what are the options? I don't want to say something you don't have. What
no, the options. No. Jess is doing the shop, so you've got all of what are your options, Dan? Sainsbury's. Go. What roast are we having?
Oh Jesus. I don't know. What did I have last? I had beef last time I had a roast. Have beef.
Beef. No, I don't know. Not beef. I don't want beef.
You don't want beef?
No, just chicken or pork, whatever you fancy. Bye. Yeah, I don't know. We never cook beef ourselves.
The whole world is yours, Dan. It's your choice. Take a pick, Dan. Pick a meat, Dan. No, not that one. No. Pick a different meat, Dan. I just picked the last one I had, mate. I didn't put any thought into it.
That's all right. I don't know why we never. I don't think, mate. I would go as far to say we've never cooked a beef roast. Like neither of us dislike beef. We have beef at my mum and dad's. We'd have beef out in a restaurant, but I don't think we ever cook beef.
Yeah, we
it's
don't
a
do
big
it a lot
old
here.
joint for.
We don't do it a lot.
It's a big
here.
old joint for two people. Do you get? What's your beef situation?
You can get a small joint of beef.
Right. Okay.
And then you've got leftovers. But we don't do it very often here either. We're more likely to go for like chicken or sometimes we do gammon. I like a gammon roast. That's a good roast.
You know what? I nearly said gammon but I didn't. Yeah.
If in our home, we're more likely to go for chicken or gammon. But the last one I happened to have had was beef. So, and it was just.
Chris? For context, dear listeners, it's December. We're in that wilderness period between Christmas and New Year.
Yes.
Did you have beef at Christmas dinner, or was it only turkey?
No, beef. We don't have any turkey at all. So basically, last year, we all went round to Nadia's sister Izzy's house for Christmas dinner, and we all sort of chipped in where we could. But basically, she's only got one little oven, and there were quite a few of us there, and she realised that she'd indulged. She'd asked everyone what they wanted, and was trying to make everything, and then she wasn't happy with how everything turned out because she tried to cook like 6 meats. Like several different kinds of potatoes. It was like the real life version of that episode of Friends where everyone asked weird requests for Monica on Thanksgiving. So this year, she was like, I'm doing one of everything and you're just going to eat that. I'm going to make the roast I want and you're all going to enjoy it. And she was right.
Play to her.
She made a nice beef roast. It was delicious. I had a good time. So, you know.
She did pigs in blankets though, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But let me tell you, Chris, they were not normal pigs in blankets. Contributed by Nadia, the pigs in blankets were like fucking giant sausages wrapped in huge things of bacon and then covered in like a honey sauce. Like, it was ridiculous. I said to Nadia, shouldn't they have been like closer to like chipolatas, like small sausages? And she was like, oh yeah. But like well after she'd already like made these monsters.
So you say you had one meat and it was beef. You also had sausages. I
said one roast, like one. I should clarify. That's true. Yeah, pigs in blankets we had, but there was only one roast done, one joint of meat.
No, but but I only say that in the sense that I wouldn't count. I wouldn't say you had sausages if you had like the small pigs in blanket, but if you had literally a full size sausage wrapped in bacon,
they were so good, but they were really big. I only actually ate one, which really surprised me because I thought like I'll eat a couple of those, but it was so big. Yeah. I only got one.
I've known you knock back, 4 sausages at a time.
I know. Disappointed myself, really. I had a lot of other food though. My favourite, parsnips.
Yeah,
I love a bit of parsnip.
To be fair,
roasted parsnips. My favourite. They tried to tell me this year parsnip tastes like soap. Lies, absolute lies.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't like parsnips, but they don't taste like soap.
What's wrong with you? Why don't you like parsnips?
I don't know. I just don't.
That is disappointing.
I eat my sprouts like a good boy. I don't like parsnips.
I don't like sprouts.
Do you like red cabbage? Red cabbage is probably my favourite veg at the moment.
Is it really? No, I mean, I wouldn't say I don't like it, but I also don't particularly like. I wouldn't seek out red cabbage.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway,
interesting.
Should we recap the episode?
Yeah. I'm definitely not trying to avoid it. Right. So.
Oh, you're not a fan of. Well, we'll get into it, but yeah.
No. I'm not in a. Clearly, from the intro, I'm not in a position to recap anything. But we're going to find out. This is the episode in which Korra is basically bullied into being on a task force to investigate Ammon after the events of the previous episode. She's sort of pulled to and fro. At first she says no, refuses the call, then ends up doing it. She gets a bit cocky because they bust an equalist chi blocking training camp thing, and then they end up just challenging him on like a wrestler. Like this Friday at the arena, we're gonna showdown. Like she does like a Hulk Hogan thing and tells him on like, come here, little man, or she tries to emasculate him. Like, you're gonna be a man about it. You're gonna come fight me, little girl. Yeah. And then she coaxes him. He shows up, beats the crap out of her, and leaves her very upset. And it is one of the more haunting, upsetting ends to an episode we've had. As much as I make the jokes about the wrestling thing and her weird attempt to emasculate Ammon, the actual way it plays out, pretty creepy. Subsequent to that, side plot, we are introduced to Asami, who has a little romantic plot with Mako, that leads to us learning a little bit about Mako's past. So that's fun also. That's also there. What do you think, Chris?
Let's dive in, because I didn't view her as cocky, actually, after the Equalizer thing. I thought she just wanted it done. I thought she was just like, she wants to get back to her training, get back to fighting in the pro bending.
Yeah.
I think she just wanted that shit done. So it was just like, let's finish this, let's cut to the chase. You and me, let's fucking go, baby.
I see.
So yeah, I didn't see it as cockiness. I saw it as just, she's fed up and just wants to get shit finished.
Now, I think that's one of my criticisms of this episode, actually, is that switch. And I've got this in my notes. I wish we'd seen her coming to the conclusion that she needed to challenge him on that way. Because there's a few ways that could have played out. Maybe it was another moment of Tarlock manipulating, because obviously Tarlock's manipulated her once already in the episode. I don't think it's a massive jump that he might have been the one to implant the idea of her, sort of challenging him on to a one-on-one. At SmackDown on Friday night. But there's also a possibility, like you said, as you pointed out, that she maybe was just, it was her fear manifesting in a way that made her desperate and want to end it sooner, sort of stop being so afraid. And this episode's a lot about fear, looking at it more seriously. And one of the first things that happens in this episode is Ammon is on the radio, and he says it's time for benders to experience fear. And, that's a really powerful idea. Yeah, they live in a world where, and this isn't a direct allegory the episode is necessarily making, but we live in a world, Chris, you and I, where we can most likely feel reasonably safe, leaving our homes in the evening and going to a certain location without having to think too hard about the route or what time it is or how dark it is or how well lit things are. Whereas women in our society have to think about things very differently, whether they can go out to the car at night, whether they can walk home in certain routes. They have to find alternate means of travel. It's a form of oppression because as a result of the patriarchy and certain men, men being the leading people involved in assaults, women have to think twice about these things. It made me think about the bending society in a completely different light, because I was thinking, if you're a non-bender in a world where there are people who can literally shoot fire out of their hands, you would have a certain amount of fear. Especially in a world where we've got the triple threat triads running around.
Sure.
you could get mugged at sort of essentially gunpoint without a gun, And I thought that was really interesting that like Amon kind of went at that route. Now, I don't think that's exactly what they were going for, that comparison. And it's worth noting that, obviously our real world situation is horrendous and things need to be done because it is a form of oppression, and it's outrageous that we still live in a society where people have to think like that, particularly women. It's awful. So I'm sitting here watching this going like, Christ, how do they solve this? Because the guy trying to fix this problem is the bad guy. But he's right. He's not wrong. And then we've got that lined up with Korra, who is, for the first time, experiencing fear, throughout this episode. And I thought that was really powerfully done. And I that ending, that shot of her in Tenzin's arms is just like haunting, really haunting.
Yeah, for sure.
I talked too much.
I thought the whole thing was done really well. And you kind of veered then to a wider point about fear and stuff. You were going to say something about like the switch where she decides to call him out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got really distracted. That is going to happen, I think, for an episode or two until I'm fully recovered. And everyone's going, Dan, you had COVID for weeks, it seems. No, we recorded 3 episodes in 2 days, is what's happened.
Yeah.
While I'm ill, which is not helped this situation whatsoever. Because I'm now also tired. On top of not being well. So the other explanation could have been that it was driven by fear. But we didn't see it either way, right? So the problem I think this episode has is it really, I think, needs a scene before Korra challenges Amon. What drove that choice? Because it feels out of nowhere when you watch the episode. And I watched it twice for this podcast, and both times I had the same reaction to it. I watched it last night with Nadia, and I watched it again this morning before we've recorded. And it really struck me that it just feels like, at what point was that plan formulated? Who okayed that? It's a stupid plan. Was she manipulated into it, or is it her youthful naivety? We'll never know because we don't see that plan being created.
I think the reason for that is it's literally spur of the moment in the press conference. Fuck it, I want this shit done. Like, I don't think I'd have to like bring it up now, but I think even Thingamajig, Tarlock, even he looks a bit surprised, doesn't he? Like, let me bring it up. I think it's so. I don't think there's a plan being formed at all. I think she's in the press conference. She's fed up with this shit, so she calls him out.
See, I'm not sure I agree because it doesn't play like that. It doesn't read like that on screen. It's not like they're having a press conference about something else. It's like he stands aside to let her say her piece. Like, oh yeah, this is. I don't know. It's presented as planned. I think in the way it's sort of shot and staged and written. I could be wrong. Maybe that isn't the intent, but that's certainly how it came across to me.
I just and I think it's open for interpretation. I just think we've seen press conferences, we've seen them take photos of them capturing the bad guys. We cut to Tarlock saying she's bravely answered the call. I think he's just giving. I don't know. I feel like he's giving a generic press conference, and then she starts getting hounded by the press. So she goes, and literally her thing starts with, you know what? It's because Amon is hiding in the shadows like a coward. I don't know. For me, I personally read it as like spur of the moment. Yeah, like he looks pretty surprised when she says it.
Okay, maybe.
Like, his face changes. Like, I don't know if you're able to pull it up. But, and I'm not trying to. This isn't me trying to convince you of my view or anything. I just his mouth opens ajar a little bit. I think it's. Yeah, my personal read is it's more of a the reason we don't see the plan form is because it isn't a plan forming, it's her off the cuff. Because I couldn't read though. I will give you one thing that's not quite clear is whether Amon is happy about it or not. Like, because he has his line of dialogue with Tenzin where he's like, I tried to talk her out of it too.
Oh, you said Amon there. You mean Tarlock, I assume.
Sorry, yes, yeah, Tarlock. So I don't know whether Tarlock did want this. And is, manipulating. Yeah,
he has a bit of a wry smile, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, I really don't. Like, when she first says it, he seems surprised, but I don't know whether he's unhappy. There's surprised, but that doesn't mean unhappy. So that I don't know, and then when you cut to the close up, he's got a bit of a wry smile. So I think, I really don't know whether he's pleased that she's done this, but you don't really see his reaction, well, unless we see it next episode, to hear that it didn't go the way it didn't go the way she wanted. So I don't want to check because we're naturally on that topic, but my criticism. Do you want to hear my criticism of the episode?
Yeah, please.
Comment. Well, not criticism, but I just because there's probably a story reason for it in the wider picture. But it just seems really sudden, doesn't it? Like the other plot where it's like, oh no, Dad's rich. Here you go. He's going to give you the money. Like, okay, that moved. Like, I don't know. That all just seems a bit convenient. But again, that's maybe not a criticism as opposed to something that's going to turn out to be a twist of some kind. Or
I agree with you. I think within you have to judge the episode as an episode, right? And it plays out very fast. And I think the intention is because it's almost like these two stories are happening concurrently, and we see Korra making a lot of like moves, and there's papers being published. So several days are passing. So I think it works okay for the Korra plot that we're just seeing the highlights. But for a plot where someone essentially basically falls in love, meets their dad, gets money for their sports team sponsorship, that all is because we keep jumping to it in a way that makes it feel like, oh, the very next day he meets her dad, the very next day this happens. It just feels very fast. But yeah, I think that's like I think the intention is maybe that more time is passing than we're aware of, like, because there's newspapers about like Korra's efforts to try and get Tarlock. I don't know if this takes place over a week or a month, but it could genuinely be either. It feels, because there's points when like Bolin's like Korra's missing practice again, and it's like this has been going on for weeks potentially. That she's been this, this sort of otherwise engaged. So yeah, I agree with you though. I think the way it plays out in the episode, for some reason, the Korra plot doesn't feel rushed, but the sort of side plot with Asami and Mako does, and I'm not sure what the difference is. If I'm being honest with you,
maybe the fact that we see montages of them that side, so like we see montages of them capturing the guys, and we the press conference as a motif is I guess we're used to that going through. I don't know, maybe I don't know, and also I think it's those are things that happen, aren't they? Those are the raid and whatever, those are plot, whereas the jarring thing about the other plot, the Marco plot, is that's character. That's like you said, we're meant to basically buy that they've fallen in love. And it wasn't even so much the love stuff. For me, it was just like okay, well, here's Dad and he's rich. Like, it just feels so convenient, so planned.
Right, so for you, it's not even necessarily a pacing thing, more of a like, what a lucky series of events for Mako to both meet, this girl that he's clearly mad about, like in such a weird and accidental way, and then suddenly she's like, "Do you want to meet my dad?" Literally, like, she says that at the end of the first date, and then it's seemingly the first date unless there's something else we're missing, and then he's like, literally, he's meeting the dad the next day. He's like, "Well, Asami's been telling me about you, and here's all this money." It's like, it's like someone shows up and is like, "Here's £1 million," and then they're like, "And this £1 million also comes with a puppy," and it's just like, it's just everything just sort of
that was
works out very quickly.
Yeah, that was my thing. Like, and like I say, I just hope there's it's part of a plot thing. Like, maybe he's a villainous character or she's a villainous character. I'd like to think not her. Like, I quite like them together. I thought they had good chemistry. But maybe she's evil or the dad's evil, or I'd like to think there's something wider going on, because otherwise it feels like that sort of, we need the character to get money. Oh, the character's won the lottery. Right. There's really, I can't think of a show offhand, but a show where it's like, we've extensively covered the family tree, and then it's like, oh no, they're related, or here's your long lost brother Gary. Like, okay, fine, we've done a lot of plots where this would have probably been uncovered before now, but fine. Yeah. Just felt
Okay, yeah, so we'll put a pin in that one then. And actually, while we're on that subject, we put a pin in one thing last week, which was that you said they never resolved the money issue.
Yes, I'm glad to see they did. Yeah,
came back this week, was a part of the plot, still not gone anywhere. Clearly, the tournament is still due. They, we set up when we did the second episode that she joined the team properly, that the tournament wasn't for a little while. So all this presumably occurring between, in that gap before that tournament starts. Although if Korra keeps missing practice because she's too busy on her task force, bad Korra.
Yeah, what I really liked about that was that made me feel like time had passed as well, because it kind of had been concluded. At the beginning of the episode, they were essentially like, yeah, well, we tried to raise the money and couldn't, and they've sort of given up,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then he kind of falls into it. How do we feel about about Tarlock as a character? So Tarlock is voiced by D. Bradley Baker, who, for those who don't know, he's been a long-time Avatar voice actor. He is the genius that did basically the world's animals. So he does I'm trying to think. So he did Appa, he did Momo, he did Naga in this series. I think he's also the radio host guy. I don't know if he's the guy that introduced each episode, but I think he's in one of the episodes. So he's done a ton of stuff across it. But this is one of his more sort of recurring roles with a humanoid character that can talk, and so yeah, he's this is like the first big sort of character they give him that's not some sort of animal, basically. So it was really nice to get him in the show that way. How did you feel about his work? Oh, actually, to be fair, did he voice Boomy? He might, Oh, no, he voiced actor Boomy. Oh, that's fun. When they did the Ember Island Players, D. Bradley Baker did a like a Boomy impression. That's very good.
No, that's good. That's
very fun. So how do you feel about his work here as Tarlock?
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job. I think Tarlock's a really interesting character. That manipulation at the beginning, when he was, doing the vote thing, and again, this fascinating thing of he's an antagonistic character, but you can see where he's coming from. I understand why he made that decision. You gotta act. You gotta be seen to be acting. So I think in terms of the voice performer, he's doing a great job, and in terms of the character, I think it's another really interesting character where there's a lot of antagonists in this show where you go, well, I can kind of see where they're coming from. I'm not a fan of his manipulation of her and refusal to let her turn this job down. So not a fan of that aspect of the character, but understand, where the character's coming from in terms of setting up the task force in the first place.
Well, yeah, I think he's an interesting character because he does kind of represent what Amon is fighting against. He's on the council. Because he's the Northern Water Tribe representative. So the council, it appears, is built up of a person from each of the major nations, but there are two Water Tribe representatives on the council because there's one from the Southern and one from the Northern Water Tribe, which makes sense because they're so far away from each other. You could argue they're almost different cultures and different groups. 1 second, I think my cat wants to be let out. I'm in a slightly different room, Chris, today. For this one, or this afternoon.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm letting my cat out. There you go, cat. Watch, in a minute he'll be scratching to come back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in the living room now, which is more festive, Chris, because the office not decorated for Christmas, but the living room where I've moved to now is. But I will say, Chris, our living room has decided to slowly undecorate itself.
Right, in what way?
So the other day, all the lights that were up around the window just slowly came down one by one. then the day after or 2 days after, the sort of like festive tinsely hangings we had fell down, one a day for like 3 days. And then last night, you know, those like cheap like tinsely like things that you drape across like from corner to corner in a room. One of those just fell off overnight last night. So I think, you know, slowly but surely, I don't think I'm actually going to have to pull all these decorations down. I'm just going to... Clearly, we just used really shit tape, and they're all just going to come down on their own.
I love the idea of by the end of this podcast, the tree's just fallen over.
The only thing still bloody completely standing. Anyway, yeah, I'm looking around to see if there's anything else that's fallen down. Yeah, apparently just we used some really awful tape. Or maybe it's one of those, like, I don't know if you've ever had that before, where you get some sellotape and then it ends up in the bottom of a box and it's sort of occasionally used but so infrequently used, and it just sort of lives there. And actually, you've had that roll of tape for, like, it turns out, well, I think it's possible it's feasible the roll of tape is like 12 plus years old, and therefore it's just lost all stickiness. But we don't know that. Well, we know it now. That could very well be what's going on. But anyway.
But still, what a tragic representation of Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Just a slow, like, well, guess this is done. Yeah.
It's just all falling down bit by bit. Every morning I wake up, there's a new bit of decorations on the floor. It's really funny.
A super quick side note. I feel like this year, and I don't know for sure that this is your attitude, but I'm going to say us because I'm pretty sure this is your attitude. I think we've discussed this before. I feel like this year, the entire world has caught up to our attitude about New Year's Eve. Every person I've spoken to, I'm like, you doing anything for New Year? They're like, nah. Like, New Year, innit? Like, you know, it's always a letdown. Fuck it, just staying in. Like, but everyone, no one's got, like, concrete, decent New Year plans. Everyone's just like, yeah, might go round so-and-so's house, maybe.
Yeah, the only good New Year's I've ever had have been sort of more spontaneous ones where it's been like, we'll go do this maybe. And it's like, and that's been more fun. Anytime we've tried to make New Year's a big special thing, it's always been an absolute shit show. I hate New Year's. You end up paying too much and you never have fun. There's too much anticipation on the evening. It's weird. Or there was when we were younger. Now I don't even care. It's fine.
No, I don't think there is now. Unless actually just all it is everyone in my life is like a similar age to me.
Well, also maybe it could also be like just apathy that's built up on the fact that we've had to live through 2020 3 times now.
Yeah.
We've had 2020 again. It's the third one. That. Can we have a different year, please? Yeah. That's so that could be part of it too. Things ain't getting better. Anyway, I was promised the Roaring 20s, Chris. What's happened?
It's very much not been that, has it?
No.
So I really like him as a character. I have no idea if this is what we were talking about, but I really like him as a character.
I want double-breasted jackets to make a comeback. That's what I want.
Well, put it on your wish list, I guess. I don't know. Call back. Really obscure. A few of the diehards got that. Thank you very much.
Good work.
Yeah. No, I can't even picture a double-breasted jacket. I don't know what you mean, but I know it's not related to the Legend of Korra. So, what is a double-breasted jacket?
They're just a particular design of suit jacket where both sides go over the breast. They have a certain look and design to them. It's the way they're cut. They're not designed to sort of meet in the middle. They go over, but they're a thing of the past, Chris. They're a thing of the past. You don't wear them anymore. They wore them in like I guess I don't know when they wore them actually. I assumed 40s and 50s, but actually we were talking about the 20s. So actually, I'm not sure that does.
Oh, where like it goes? Is it? I still don't understand what I'm looking at. It goes all the way over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
but on both sides. Both sides are even. They're not cut to meet in the middle.
Yeah, they're cut to overlap. Yeah. I don't know if you could pull this off.
No, but that's the point. I want them to just be back in general, so that there's no question of pulling them off.
Right, it's just a thing. Right, okay, yeah.
You know, I was promised the Roaring. I want to wear a hat again. I want people to wear hats again.
I think hats are back, mate. Hats are in. You could wear a hat, mate. Hats are a thing.
Dress hats.
I got a colleague that wears a hat all day, like meetings, just
What
kicking around
kind
the
of hat
office.
though? What kind of hat? A fancy hat?
No, like a baseball cap.
That's no, Chris. Incorrect. This is the problem. I want fancy hats.
No, we what like we really should be talking about Legend of Korra, but do you mean like almost like pork pie hats or like a flat cap or something like that?
I mean, like fedoras and trilbies and like.
Yeah, we can't do it, mate. We're not a size that can do it. But in the same way that you or I cannot wear a Hawaiian shirt, we can't wear a hat like that because people will be like, "Oh, look at that, big man in a hat."
Yes, but Chris, but if everyone wore them, then we could.
Yeah.
If it became
Yeah,
just
I
the thing
guess.
again that everyone dressed like that.
Yeah. Maybe.
The thing is, I say all this, but actually, it would be a lot of effort, wouldn't it? And I do quite like. I don't particularly care for the visual of a t-shirt and jeans, but can't deny the convenience of it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. Was it you
Anyway.
that I was talking about how I just don't like jumpers too? Or was that someone else?
You don't like jumpers? What's wrong with jumpers? No, I like a nice smart jumper. What's wrong with
I
you?
just don't wear them. I don't wear them. I wore a Christmas jumper and was like, why not? And then I realised I just don't wear jumpers.
Oh yeah, Christmas jumpers don't really count. Though. I don't care for Christmas jumpers.
I don't have a jumper. I don't own a jumper. I just
own
wear
4 jumpers. They're very
I
good.
wear like a zip up hoodie. Is the closest I've got to like a jumper.
Oh no.
Even then, I'd be unlikely to wear a hoodie.
I didn't
like,
wear.
without a zip.
I didn't wear jumpers in my youth though, so you won't have seen me in jumpers.
Oh, I'm sure at some point we've been friends for like coming up for 15 years now.
Yeah, but how often do we see each other in person in the winter when I'm likely to wear a jumper? You may never have seen me in a jumper, Chris.
I've seen you in a jumper, my friend. There's no way I've not seen you in a jumper.
You wear a
I've
jumper
seen
with
you
a little,
jumper
and you wear a shirt underneath, so the collar comes out at the top.
I think it's way, way less likely that you've seen me in a jumper.
Right, agreed.
So, what are your predictions for the next episode of Legends?
Sorry, we have definitely got it. This is why now I'm realizing that we shouldn't have recorded 2 episodes today. Is what I'm realizing, but that's fine. We're here. We're doing it. Let's do it. Right. So, let's talk about some of the details of the episode. We open on to create the effect of how and establish how much fear Amana's put into Korra. We start with a dream sequence. I wondered, will Chris dislike this? Chris doesn't care for dream sequences. Generally, how did you?
Yeah,
how did you feel? How did you feel about that?
I did love it because it's a great shortcut. It's a great way to make the point that she's scared. But at no point did I believe it was reality. I was like, well, this is a dream. So, but it's fine. Because how else? It's a great way of. She's internalizing the fear at the beginning. She's keeping it in, and it's a good shorthand to do that. As much as I'm like, oh yeah, dream sequences. If I'm in that writer's room, I'm probably pitching it. Probably going, what about dream sequence, huh? It's fine.
You know what's funny though? I don't think it's anywhere near as effective as when Bolin goes to see her. And he's like, oh, you've not been coming to practice. She's like, yeah, I've just been focused on my training. And that's obviously a lie. And he's like, really? I was just worried you were still feeling scared after Amon, because I was terrified. I still don't sleep well. And the look on her face, it's like it's a funny moment for Bolin. He's like very funny in that moment. But also you can tell that like the trauma he's going through is shared by Korra. But the difference is like he's trying to deal with it by talking and she's just avoiding it. And I think that's almost more effective at establishing Korra's situation than
I'd agree with that.
Than the dream sequence, which is kind of funny because the dream sequence, you would argue, should be like the more effective method because that really is showing us what she's worried about and what she's thinking about on the inside. But I got a lot more out of the Bolin chat than I did the dream personally. I don't dislike the dream sequence. It serves its place, but I'm a little bit with you on this one because I don't really know how much it adds to it other than just giving us a tone setter.
Yeah. I'll tell you a weirder moment, if we're talking specifics. The transition between the really tense like council room. And like the really dramatic, like they're going against what Tenzin wants, and then just this, we go in on his face, and then we just get this jazz music, like for the fade over. Then cut to Korra like practicing with the music playing, but it's this really tense moment, and then it's just like the fucking Coronation Street theme tune or something comes on, and you're like, what? That's weird. So I found that quite jarring.
Yeah, that's a fair observation because that's when she hears like Amon's like message on the radio, right?
Yeah.
I think this episode's really good at like laying out where we're at, which is I think an interesting point in Korra's journey. Like she's gone from being cocky and overconfident to being, because it's a surprise to both Tenzin and us, the audience, when she initially refuses Tarlock. And I think that's a really important choice for the character and for the storytelling here, and actually quite a clever one, because she's been so gun bloody ho this whole show, just like, oh, I'm just gonna jump in and do everything. I'm gonna fight the Triads. I'm gonna fight Amon. I'm gonna fix everything. And the idea that someone like Tarlock would show up, whose attitude is we need to do something, instead of sitting around boardrooms discussing the thing, like a man of action, for better or worse, he wants action, and for him to walk into, invite himself to dinner, which I thought was a funny scene because it shows he just does not give a shit because he's not being subtle at all. Like Tenzin's immediately like, "What do you want from Korra?" Because he's being very flattering and like he's clearly up to something. But the minute he asks her and she's like, "No, I'm gonna stay here," you go, wow, like she is shook by that defeat. It doesn't even matter that she successfully saved Bolin. She sees the Equalist rally from the previous episode as an absolute L. Like she does not see that as a victory at all. That's a loss, and that's bothering her. And she's terrified of what Amon can do. The idea that he could take away her bending, the one thing that's always made her special, has really affected her, and it sort of humbled her in a weird way. And while she still ends up being manipulated into taking action, I would say that's Tarlock cleverly, putting her fear, turning her fear against her to make her take action. Because what they accuse her of is being afraid, and she doesn't want people to think that. So that's when she shifts. So for her character, it's actually a big episode, I think.
Yeah, I think so, and we see, more layers. In some ways, it feels like the first episode that's actually about her character and what her character's going through. Like, we talked in, I think, episode 1 about how we didn't have a particular idea of who Korra was, whereas we get that in this episode, and it's, a scared, multi-layered person, and I think she comes across a bit more human in this one.
Yeah, because I think what we established was what they did the first couple of episodes was they spent their time demonstrating that her behaviors are a result of her upbringing. So she might seem a little bratty and like naive and like she's not really, but it's because she was brought up in isolation, not really in the real world, not experiencing real danger because she's been wrapped sort of in bubble wrap by the White Lotus. She's always had things provided for her, so she doesn't really understand about, like, when she meets that homeless guy, she doesn't really seem to understand the situation there. When she meets the Triple Threat Triad, she doesn't really understand what's happening there either. And those first episodes were not there to establish, like, Korra's personality in depth. They were there to establish certain character traits and behaviors, and then explain that they're a result of her being... her upbringing, being isolated for so long. So that's made her naive to the real world, so to speak. You could argue maybe it wasn't quite as healthy as the White Lotus intended, the way they brought her up. She's actually a bizarrely unprepared avatar.
Yeah.
She's prepared in the bending elements, with the exception of air. She's not prepared as a person to be out in the real world making a difference. And that is a fascinating position for an avatar to be in. And I think so the first episodes were really dealing with that, whereas this is like getting way more nuanced now about what she's going through and specifically what's changing. So this is the first evidence of a character arc now, because she's been that stubborn, naive person for the first 3-4 episodes. This is the first time we've seen her behave in a way that has surprised us, I would argue. I was as surprised as Tenzin she turned that offer down before she was then manipulated into doing it anyway. But yeah, that caught me off guard, even on a rewatch. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot she says no to start with.
And I think you really do feel the weight of being, you feel really sorry for her when she's just forced into this position that she doesn't want. You feel the weight of that. You feel the weight of this fight. That, in a similar, thing to Aang. The weight of but it's so fascinating how thematically it's very similar, but the circumstances are just so worlds apart. But fundamentally, she's being forced to fight a fight that she's scared to fight. And Aang maybe wasn't so much scared, but he was certainly being forced into a fight that he wanted to run from. And in many ways, that's what's happening with her here. She's, it gave me real kind of, Steven Universe vibes.
Right.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great.
Yeah, and I think as well, it shows her capability to learn, because she's observed her brash behavior the previous week and seen and potentially at least a little bit observed that maybe she's not as infallible as she thinks, and she is capable of potentially losing, and she needs to be more careful about when and where she chooses to fight. And then, her emotions overcome her. The old habits are out by the end of the episode, and she's like, meet me in the ring off to Avatar Aang Memorial Island or whatever they call it. And, and then she is once again taught that lesson. There's a part of me that thinks, is that maybe the least clean way to do it? Could this episode have not started, excuse me, with her being brash and arrogant and challenging Ammon, and then ending with him just, doing what he does here, which I want to talk about more in a minute separately, but doing what he does here, and then her having to then be scared. Is that not cleaner? Whereas this journey is a little bit rocky, because she's scared at the beginning of the episode, then seems to regain her confidence, and then is scared again at the end of the episode. What's actually changed from minute 1 of this to minute 22 of this? Not 100% sure. We've reinforced Ammon as a threatening villain. We've introduced Asami.
I think quite a lot's changed. We've introduced Asami. We know that Anon, say his name,
Ammon, Amon, Ammon, yes,
has got a clear plan. Has got, doesn't want her to become a martyr, which I thought was interesting. It's very hard.
We'll talk
to
about that
pull
in a
off.
minute, because I think that's one of my favorite things in this episode. Carry on.
It's very hard to pull off the, why. How many times have we seen spoofed, and how many times has, in particular, the James Bond franchise or spy franchises in general, done that sort of, oh, well, I'm going to tell you the plan, and I have a wider plan instead of just killing you now, which would make sense. They really pull that off here. They really pull off this. No, I don't want you to become a martyr. I've got a very specific plan. We're not going to fight now. That's the reason, but that fight's coming. I thought the fact that they pull that off and don't make you go, well, why isn't he just getting her now? That seems silly. The fact that you buy that scene, the fact that you believe it, the fact that you're like, yeah, okay, that checks out, is astonishing. That's fantastic writing.
Yeah, and for those who don't remember the logic, he kind of sort of says, if I take you out now, all I'll do is the Benders will rally behind you. It's not, the more detailed version of the martyr thing is I would turn you into a sort of symbol of rebellion. People would be more likely to fight back, because then because I've taken away the Avatar. People will be more outraged at that. So I have a plan. I'm getting there, but for now, stay the hell out of my way, basically.
Yeah.
It's a very menacing scene. It's, by the way, just separate note, animated beautifully. The use of shadows and the way that when she uses the fire, it like lights up their masks in a haunting way. The way they immediately like disable her with the chi blocking and tie her up, and like it really is very upsetting to watch. It's like a really haunting sequence, and when it ends with her getting that glimpse of Tenzin and thinking it's Aang, and then her admitting she's afraid and being upset in Tenzin's arms as the episode ends is like, it's a really, really powerful way to end an episode. Yeah. I don't know if, did we get your thoughts on, like, I wasn't sure about the episode's choice to start her at scared, get her confident again, and then end her at scared again. I didn't know. Did I get your thoughts on that? I can't remember. My brain is dying.
I'll be honest with you again. I kind of have a different read on it. I don't think she's ever confident. I think she's scared and hiding behind overconfidence. And she's like, that attack before they attack and send the water through and then freeze everyone, and that's really cool. Like, she breathes in. She has a moment of, okay, let's do this. Like, most confident I think she is when Tenzin's like, we make a good team. And she's very much like, yeah, we do. But she, again, my read on that isn't, yeah, hell yeah, we do. Let's kick some ass. Her read on that is, yeah, we are. Yeah, I guess we are getting the job done. Like, she's forced into a situation and is playing the part of confident, but I don't think she actually ever. She is scared. I mean, my read of it is that she is scared the entire time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a better read of it. I think I'd be happier with that if that's the explanation. I think that does make more sense. It's possible that in my slightly delirious state I've misread it, but
but I think your reading is fair enough. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's not my. I think she's scared the whole time. I don't think she's ever confident here.
Right. She's just fighting through it with bravado.
Yeah. Bravado's a great word. Bravado's the word.
Okay. So a couple of the little points before we get onto the trivia. Last week I mentioned, like, we got a council that's made up entirely of benders. Strictly speaking, we don't know that, actually. I wanted to just sort of adjust that this week. It's likely they are all benders. They're all in the various attires, but they could just be normal people from their nations. They're probably not, but they could be. Yeah, no one there representing non-benders, though. So we got Earth, 2 water, fire, and air in Townsend, and yeah, I think it's unlikely there's a non-bender on that council. But anyway,
yeah, I get the vibe. They can all bend.
Yes, I agree. But I guess strictly speaking, this is me covering the comments. We technically don't know that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyone on that council could be a bender.
Yeah.
Could be a non-bender. They could just be a person who can't bend from their respective nation. Again, I find that unlikely based on the way the show has been set up previously. Let's briefly talk about there's an interesting reference that I picked up on to one of Aang's old adventures. Tarlock tries to curry the favor of the council by saying, well, Aang didn't hesitate to stop Yakon years ago. No further detail about what that was. Interesting passing reference to Aang, sort of establishing his previous work in the city, I guess. An adventure we didn't see. So it's clearly not from his time in the main show. It's obviously once Republic City existed. How did you feel about that? Do you think making little references to like a life Aang led that we never saw is a good thing to be doing, or do you think that's maybe a little too on the nose? How did you feel about that, Chris?
I was almost a little torn because part of me wondered whether it was coming back, whether we would see more of that adventure or it would become more relevant, which is fine. I also, to be honest with you, of course he had adventures after. Like, for the world to become what it is now, I actually quite liked the idea of them going, and then there was this, it's akin... oh no, it's not a shot, that's Harry Potter, but it's akin to, when I like it when Doctor Who starts mid-adventure.
No, it's a shot if it's Harry Potter or Doctor Who.
or Star Wars now for Korra.
Yeah.
So yeah, take a shot. I like the episodes of Doctor Who where we start in the middle of another adventure, or he references, someone will say something about an historical figure, and he'll go, "Oh, great tap partner," or something. Like I think I like that wider world context, and I like the notion of
You like the idea there are adventures between the adventures.
Yeah, and I like the idea, but I think there has to be for this world to make sense. There has to be. Yeah, I liked that.
Yes. Yeah, I did too. I don't want to talk too much about it in case I don't want to give away whether there is or isn't further use of it. Because obviously one of your things there was whether it was to come back. And I don't want anything I say to be interpreted as whether that is relevant or not. Because I feel like
fair.
It, too much or too little, and you might assume either way, and even if that's not my intent. So, but yeah, I agree with you that I like the idea that Aang lived a full and interesting Avatar life. It wasn't just peace and quiet for him after. Not that he hasn't earned peace and quiet, but the idea of Aang not being active in shaping the world and doing right by the world, that's almost more offensive of an idea. Because it's like, it's Aang. He was the hero. He did the right thing. He couldn't just, sort of end Fire Lord Ozai's reign and then be like, all right, put my feet up. You guys figure out whatever's left. What's that? Crime? I don't know. Whatever. I beat the Fire Lord. You guys figure it out. Like, that idea is almost more, do you know what I mean? Shitty.
Yeah, I mean, that would be Steven Universe Future. I'm joking. Don't come at me, people. I'm joking.
Yeah. So like, it's I feel like, Aang's responsibility to the world would have continued, and his attitude would have continued to be, well, I'm going to help people because that's what I want to do with my life. So yeah. So yeah, I think that's really important, and I like that we've got references to that, and it also just makes it feel a bit more textured to have a little reference like that,
Yeah, textured is a good word. I liked it for that. I thought it added texture.
Yes. Speaking of that, last few bits before we get onto the triv, which is, let's talk a little bit about Mako and Asami, because I want to cover a few things. First of all, the love triangle becoming a love rhombus, or whatever we said last week. Was it last week or was that this week?
I can't remember.
I can't remember if that was in this episode or not. Doesn't matter. We said it on one of them. Asami being included has kind of complicated the matter to some degree. My favourite element of which is when Korra acknowledges the thing we're all thinking, which is, this is all a bit quick, when she goes to this fancy, elite party, high society party, and Mako is just there, like, and she's just like, hi, Mako, and he's like, yeah, this is Asami, who I'm here with, and it's like, it feels like he's lived a life in the 2 days she's not seen him.
Is it not even funnier though that Bolin's just there? Presumably he's tagged along with Marco, and he's just like, "Hey!" And I really like that whole love triangle dynamic of, well, who's she? He's never mentioned you, and then Bolin like, oh, well, they met on the da-da-da, like, oh,
Yes.
It's
I wrote that line down. It's really because he hasn't mentioned you at all. Like, it's very good.
But then the way Bolin's
jealousy,
stirring the pot and being like, well, no, you're essentially going like, well, he's moved on, he's found someone else, maybe you should too. Look who's right here standing in front of you, Korra. It's me.
Very good.
Bolin.
Yes. Well, Bolin also brings her like flowers and like a little cupcake earlier in the episode and stuff. So it's clear Bolin still has those sort of initial feelings for Korra.
Yeah, but what they didn't do, I'm surprised they didn't do the gag where, because obviously Tan's, whatever his name is,
Tarlock?
Tan's Tarlock.
Yes.
He gets her a flower and like a cupcake or something, isn't it? But then Tarlock like sends a whole fucking hamper, and we didn't see the shot of like Bolin looking at his like one flower and being like, "Oh shit."
No,
like,
but they did have that whole thing where he's like, "So who's this guy? Who's this guy?" And she's like, "Oh, he's just some older guy that's like it's like from the council that's like bothering me about a task force." And he's like, "I like that. I like that better," which is a good gag and delivered brilliantly. Yeah. We haven't really talked too much about the voice cast yet for this show. But they do a really good job. So Janet Varney is a brilliant Korra. Dave Faustino as Mako and PJ Byrne as Bolin doing an absolutely brilliant job. And actually Steve Blum doing Amon very good too. So yeah,
brilliant
great
stuff.
cast all around. And actually I really like I'm gonna have to look at her. I remember her surname is Gabrielle, but I never remember her first name. Seychelle Gabrielle. Oh, rhymes. The actress that voices Asami. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing, but she's also very, very good too.
Yes.
Oh, she was also
she's
the voice
brilliant.
of Princess Yue in the original series.
Is that how I reckon? Because I've definitely recognised the voice. I was like, I don't know, but I knew I'd seen someone. I've seen a lead actress from Korra talk about Korra on like a fandom like YouTube thing. So I was like, maybe I know the voice from that. Maybe I've seen her do a bunch of those things. But I absolutely, the minute she appeared, was like, I recognise that voice. Like,
Well, she
so
was
maybe
she
that's
was,
why.
she was Princess Yue in the first season of Avatar. So there you go. Yeah. So there's that. Any other notes that I have? Oh yeah, let's talk about the scarf. Talk about this. Oh, actually, no. While we're on the party, one quick last note on the party. I love a little cameo from Lin Beifong, who is just an absolute savage. She comes in, insults Korra, and gets out. She's nothing if not efficient.
Yeah, very tough, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on that other than that I love it. Of course I do. Tough fanboy. Tough number one fanboy over here.
Yeah.
The best.
Of course, you loved it.
Let's move on to the scarf before we do trivia. So we had the stuff with the scarf this week, which is for those who don't remember, Mac always wears the same scarf. He refuses to take it off when they put him in fancy clothes to go to this restaurant for his date with Asami. And then later on, Asami's like, "Oh, I bought you a new scarf last week. Why aren't you wearing it?" And he explains, it's not that he didn't like the new scarf. This scarf that he's wearing was all he has left of his father. And when he wears it, he feels safer. And then we reveal that Asami also lost her mother. She lost her mother young, and they have that to bond over, which I think is actually one of the more effective moments of their relationship throughout the episode. But also like a little bit of backstory for Mako and Bolin as well, because obviously we know that that they were orphaned. So yeah, it all sort of a lot of different elements coming together in that moment, and I thought it worked quite well. So I was
I agree.
Any
I thought that
thoughts
was very
on that,
effective.
Chris?
Just that I agree with you. I thought it was very effective.
Yes. Cool. There you go. That's the last of my notes. Shall we move into trivia?
Yeah, man. Let's do it. Let's triv it up!
I'm going to give you some trivia. Now, I want to start, because this one will take a second, because I'm so annoyed. So I tried to figure out, Chris, Asami's... So Sotomobiles exist. I tried to figure out what Asami's moped was, right? And I gave up after maybe 10 minutes of attempting to figure it out. And I'll tell you why. I eventually found myself on a Tumblr, Chris, called asamis-moped.tumblr.com.
That's phenomenal.
And the moment I gave up was there was a post that's Asami on the moped with both Korra, Mako, and Bolin all trying to fit on. Like someone's drawn like a simplistic version of that, and it just looks ridiculous. And then someone's written the real reason Asami never used her moped again, because she couldn't fit everyone in. But then there's a comment, Chris, with 7 notes, which I think means 7 like retweets in Tumblr terms, I think. And it says, Asami can tighten my nuts and bolts any day. Now, I read that and immediately closed all the tabs and gave up that I'm ever going to find out what this moped is.
Yeah, you gotta not, haven't you? That is horrendous.
That was the moment to stop. So thank you, the internet. You've ruined yet another thing. I just wanted to know what the moped was, Chris.
It was such an innocent question you had, wasn't it? Such an innocent query.
What kind of moped? Is it modelled off a real-world moped? Does it look like a specific sort? I tried Googling a couple of mopeds to see if I could find a match. I couldn't spot one, so I Googled a Siamese moped. I did not... Bad internet. Stop it.
Oh, dear. That is horrendous.
Yeah. So, no Sotomobiles exist this week because I wasn't able to clarify. But, you know.
Yeah, you made the right call there.
Look, if anyone knows if there was a particular moped that inspired a Siamese design of moped, or that particular design of moped that's drawn into the show, because it probably is based at least loosely on a real world one, let me know the make and model and I will reference it in a later episode if you happen to know, or if you're willing to do the Googling. I'm clearly not. So
yeah, there'll be people out there willing for sure.
Mm-hmm. So the scene in which Mako is hit by a Siamese moped mimics a similar scene from an anime series called FLCL, which is apparently one of Mikey and Bri-Bri's biggest inspirations for the original series. I think we've talked about FLCL before, and I think I've always been tempted. FLCL, 1 second. What does that even stand for? It's just called that. Looks cool, though. Yeah, well, looks like a cool anime. I wonder if it's on Crunchyroll. I've got Crunchyroll. I could probably watch some episodes of that at some point. But yeah, so that's clearly an inspiration for that scene. So there you go. Councilman Tarlock references Avatar Aang's defeat of Yakon 42 years prior to the present day. This means that Republic City was to some extent up and running in 126... That's AG. What does AG stand for in this world? Wait.
I cannot. I'm trying to.
God. BG what? Before genocide. AG after genocide. As in
Jesus.
As in after the genocide of the Airbenders.
God. Wow. Okay, that's haunting.
It's upsetting, isn't it? That is upsetting. So what this indicates is it was a mere 28 years after the end of the 100-Year War. They call it the 100-Year War. There you go. I was asking about that like two episodes ago. What would if they had a title for that war with the Fire Nation? 100-Year War. There you go.
That is unbelievable.
That's got to be a fan term, right? There's no way anyone on the crew refers to the dates on this as AG. BG.
I don't know though if it's made its way onto the Wikipedia or whatever.
Yeah, that's a horrible way to do the dates.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so yeah, but the actual point of that, before I again foolishly Googled a thing I didn't want to know, because I thought AG. Oh, what that'll be like? After something beginning with G, like as in like a battle that maybe happened in the original show, or something like that. But nope. Anyway, so yeah, it's about 28 years, after the original series is when his whatever his interaction with this villain was. So there you go. Jinora and Iki can be seen playing Pai Sho in the background when Korra receives her invitation to Tarlock's party. Just a nice little nod. Pai Sho was the game that was very popular amongst the White Lotus, and particularly Uncle Iroh in the original series. Korra challenging Amon is a reminiscent of her teacher, Katara, challenging the North Pole's waterbending master Pakku. Both Katara and Korra ending their impulsive and bold challenge with a question of their opponent's masculinity. So there you go.
There you go.
Apparently, the image seen on the banners at Tarlock's party was a piece of concept art that was done in the early stages for Korra. So there you go. That's fun.
There you go. Nice.
Tenzin is shown using a traditional air nomad glider in this episode. That is true. Good work, person who spotted that. The sequence where Korra uses firebending against the chi blockers during the nighttime ambush at Aang Memorial Island was based on an unused concept from The Last Airbender, where Aang was supposed to fight Zuko in complete darkness, the characters and their surroundings only appearing when Zuko firebent. That's a really cool idea. Glad we got it into the show finally.
Yeah, it's nice.
When Mako gets dressed up for his date with Asami, his appearance is apparently very similar to Roger Smith from the anime Big O. Sure. I'll have to take the Triv's word for it on that one.
Yeah. It wouldn't it be amazing though if I was like, "Oh, Big O, yeah, sure. I think that's series 1, episode 12." You'd be like, "What?"
I would have assumed you were joking or lying, if I'm being honest, Chris. Before I would have assumed that was legit, but
that's reasonable.
Yeah. After being knocked out, yeah, okay. No, we can't talk. That one's technically a spoiler. No, we'll come back to that. That's not really a big, interesting piece of trivia anyway. It's just how the series top and tails itself with a similar idea. Doesn't matter. The scene transition from a still frame of Korra with Tarlock's task force to the frame as a photo in the newspaper article is inspired by a similar sequence in the film The Hudsucker Proxy. That famous film, The Hudsucker Proxy.
That pesky Hudsucker.
And his proxy.
Yeah, sorry. How could I forget his proxy?
I genuinely have never heard of this thing. Were there any of those words mean anything to you? Because that's just gibberish to me.
Such a shit joke, but I loved it so much. I mean, I am beginning to worry about the quality of these last couple of episodes.
Oh, it's a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh, God. I think the challenge is, when you've been ill before, one of us is like, if it's like rewind reviews or Nothing But Static, like, one of us can take the reins, like, from the other one a bit easier. But in something like this, where, like, you know, the point of the podcast is, I've not seen the show and you have, it's very difficult for me to sort of take the weight if you're a bit delirious.
Yes.
So, I am sorry. But Dan, thank goodness this hasn't happened at technically, a point where listeners that have never listened before might be checking it out.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. It's a normal, good podcast. I actually genuinely am familiar with the movie The Hudsucker Proxy without realizing I was familiar with it.
Who wins?
It's
Hudsucker or Proxy?
Both. It's a Coen Brothers movie, and I came across it a couple of years ago. Or maybe it wasn't that long ago, when a YouTuber called Patrick H. Willems did a really, really interesting video about it, because the movie was directed by the Coen Brothers, but actually it was directed by Joel Coen. It was written by both the Coen Brothers, but they brought in Sam Raimi to as a second unit director to film a montage that goes into the movie, and it's the best part of the movie, and I've seen that montage in its entirety, and it's an incredible piece of movie making. So I actually am familiar with the movie.
There you go.
Didn't realize I was. I couldn't remember. I hadn't remembered the title, evidently, but yeah,
that's fair. Nice.
So there you go. And then finally, the episode had the second highest number of US viewers for book one.
Nice.
After the opening episode. The opening episode had the highest number of viewers, and this one had the next. So there you go. Avatar. It's a thing. Bye, everyone.
No, do you want me to do it? I'll try and do it for you, Dan.
Go on.
So you can get us in all the usual places. We're not really checking Twitter, either of us, anymore. But we are on there, Nothing But Static without the G. And then Dan is at Dan Doolan. I'm at C Billingham, 2 M's. But we kind of are unlikely to check that. You can get us via our Gmail address, which is Nothing But Static, again without the G, at gmail.com.
I love that you always give out the old one. That will still work. That will find us. But for years, it's now been mail at nothingButStatic.co.uk. But I love that. Once we bought the domain, we had that. But I do love that you always give out the one from like 2013. Like, I think that's the last time we used that email address. I love it. Carry on.
Or alternatively, if you want a more foolproof method, you could try mail at nothingbutstatic.com.
.co.uk, sorry, .co.uk.
.co.uk. Also on YouTube, youtube.com/nothingbutstatic. I believe that's with the G. I mean, you're not going to try us via Facebook, are you? But I think that's Nothing But Static UK, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You're unlikely to try it.
Well, I deleted my Facebook, so I don't know what happens to it. Because I think I created that page. If I delete my Facebook, does that page go away?
No, possibly. Let me have a look now. Nothing But Static. No, Nothing But Static podcast. 108 likes. Still a thing.
There you go.
That's weird. But how could it be a thing? Oh, wait. Hold on. Oh, I think I'm admin of it as well.
There we go.
Because I've got the options to add a button and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, very unlikely to... Yeah, no. That's... Whether you... I guess you must have made me admin when you set it up as well. So it stayed because I'm still on there. So there you go. Nothing But Statics on Facebook, but we're very unlikely to check that. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the usual places you can find a podcast. Likes and shares would be great. Just telling a friend, just saying, oh, if you like Avatar, you might want to check this out. That will also be great. Leaving a review is very helpful. But, as always, if you don't want to do any of that or can't do any of that, not a problem at all. Equally the same attitude with our Patreon. Little as $1 a month, you can get access to episodes of this and Rewind reviews a week ahead. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, YouTube, etc., then the next episode is already up on Patreon. But again, no hard feelings if you can't do any of that.
I have
not a problem at all.
From Chris, I have all the hard feelings.
Yeah, Dan's quite bitter, quite personal. Actually, it's quite unsettling.
The stuff I say about you guys that don't do the Patreon off air. Oof, boy.
Oh, jeez, it's the vitriol is offensive.
And a lot of your mama jokes.
Yes, yeah. Because not only is Dan angry, but he's trapped in 2006 as well.
2006. I was going to say 1996.
So yeah, if you can, but otherwise, just keep listening and thank you for listening. We very much appreciate your listens.
Yes. Well, thank you, Chris, for doing the wrap-up and saving me the embarrassment of attempting it myself. That has been everything for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully, by the time you come back next time, I will be a competent, conscious human being that will do provide you exactly what we normally provide you, subpar podcasting, instead of whatever this has been.
There's no need to completely change your personality, Dan. Just be a little bit more on the ball. Let's not strive for competent.
Well, competent to our usual level and standard, not whatever these last two episodes have been. Yeah, with a slightly delirious me. Anyway, so thank you all for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you in a week's time when we sit down to review The Spirit of Competition.